Nobody on Earth knows how to make this pencil. It seems simple, but it isn't. To make just one of these requires thousands of individuals cooperating across a dozen countries, none of whom know each other, and none of them capable of doing the other's job. From the loggers who cut the cedar, the miners who dug the graphite, to the waiters who fed all the workers, making just one of these is nearly impossible. By all measures, the number 2 pencil is genuinely a miracle. And just as this pencil is dependent on thousands of people organizing themselves to an unknown end, so too is our entire civilization dependent on billions of people organizing themselves to keep our houses lit and our internet online. Our entire world depends on unimaginably vast and disturbingly fragile supply networks. In short, just like the pencil, so too is our civilization a miracle. In the 300,000 years our species has existed, it's only in the last 12,000 years that civilization has existed. And in that time, past civilizations who thought of themselves as mighty as our own have all followed a similar cycle. They rise, they flourish, and then they fall. Egypt, Rome, Sumer, the Maya, every one of them gone. And never to a single cause. There's always multiple crises all feeding one another. And honestly, we're not so special. Just like the other civilizations that have preceded us, we're lucky to be here, and we're living close to a dangerous edge. I should note, the fall of civilizations isn't always a tragedy. It's kind of like a cycle, a conversation through time, through the different branches of human history. But ours is different. Not only is our civilization globally interconnected, but our technology is so powerful that it could end that conversation for good.
That's a bummer. Okay.
This video is a survey of all of the existential threats facing humanity. By the end of it, you'll see that it's not just independent crises we're facing, but one interconnected problem, a polycrisis.
We are in a polycrisis.
Polycrisis.
If you just read a newspaper or watch the news, in a sense, you are presented with this collage, and the collage begins to just look incoherent and crazy to the point where you begin to wonder whether you actually sort of be able to any longer trust your own senses. And what the polycrisis concept says is, relax. This is actually the condition of our current moment.
The ability to destroy everything we know and love started in 1945.
This is the gallant crew which carried the first atomic bomb to Japan. The B-29 dropped its load of atomic death, which exploded with a force equal to 20,000 tons of TNT.
Think of this as a problem for those earlier generations. Cuban Missile Crisis, school drills where kids had to duck under desks, a fear that ended with the Cold War. And there's good reason for this, an economic reason. Because following the Cold War, a series of military and trade agreements ensured a world order where we wouldn't want to go to war with each other, not just because of mutually assured destruction, but because it was against our economic interests. And for 80 years, we've had relative peace and cooperation. But as we hit the edges of resource depletion, where the cost of extracting a barrel of oil continues to increase, as authoritarian regimes continue to rise in prominence and power, stripping the world of its treaties, this era of global peace might be coming to an end. The old order is coming apart. On nearly every continent, populist and nationalist movements, left and right, are surging. Alliances are strained. Trade wars are being fought. And the treaties that once held the system together are expiring fast. As isolationism rises, more nations will reach for nukes as the surest ticket to political relevance, while the incentives that once kept us from using them quietly disappear.
Every man, woman, and child lives under a nuclear sword of Damocles, hanging by the slenderest of threads, capable of being cut at any moment by accident or miscalculation or by madness.
Likewise, treaties in climate change and reducing our pollution have also been coming under pressure.
The United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord.
The United States pulling out of the Paris agreements is one of many examples. And the very existence of ecological disruption, climate change, has become a political issue rather than a scientific one.
It'll start getting cooler. You just watch.
I wish science agreed with you.
Well, I don't think science knows, actually.
And that's despite a clear consensus within the scientific community.
A survey of thousands of scientific papers that took a position on climate change found that 97% endorsed the position that humans are causing global warming.
And those scientists, they've concluded that not only is climate change real, but hugely important. And yet for most of us, climate change doesn't feel real. There's no one to blame except us. In part, this is because we think of it in the wrong way. We think of climate change as a slow dial with consequences in a far-off future, when instead, it's more like a switchboard. Those tipping points we've heard of, the thawing permafrost, melting ice sheets, they're like switches wired together. Cross one threshold and you lower the bar for the next one. So the warming doesn't just add up, it compounds. And as things get worse, they get really worse. And the early signs are already here. Fires are burning brighter in California and Portugal, while hurricanes are causing more and more damage. But that's not the real threat. The real threat is with our food. Warming oceans are gutting the fisheries that feed billions of people, while the insects, which our food webs and crops depend on, are slowly collapsing. As the systems that feed us continue to break down, and as fresh water begins to run dry, climate refugees will flood our governments, causing political turmoil. A change in weather becoming a change in who's in charge. All of this is grim, but it's survivable. The next threat isn't.
Tonight, U.S. cases of coronavirus more than doubling, with 2 new cases in Southern California and 1 in Maricopa County, Arizona.
In 2020, the world experienced a shock to the system. COVID-19 disrupted our entire world. It forced billions of us into lockdown. It caused shortages at grocery stores. And for a moment, it made the world feel its own fragility. And yet, despite the devastation, in many ways, COVID-19 could have been a lot worse. Because here's the thing, whether or not COVID-19 came from a lab, the likelihood that the next pandemic does is sky high. This is referred to as gain-of-function research, where scientists deliberately make pathogens more dangerous or more transmissible to study them. It's so dangerous that in 2025, the United States suspended federal funding for it.
It's a big deal. It could have been that we wouldn't have had the problem we had.
But globally, there's no ban, and the capability is spreading despite any one government's attempts to thwart it. Meanwhile, the institutions that might coordinate a response are being weakened. The United States pulling out of the World Health Organization defunds safeguards built exactly for this. Those who study this threat consider the dangers much higher than what anything we saw in 2020.
Thanks to advances ranging from sequencing to CRISPR to DNA synthesis, we've increasingly learned to read, to edit, and to reprogram living things. But we also need to keep in mind that exponential biology has a dark side. Not everything that can spread on its own is good for us. And of course, we've just lived through this. If another pandemic began today, we wouldn't be able to stop it from killing millions of people. And that needs to change because we will likely learn to cause new ones.
And the thing most likely to push it there is the same force that's about to reshape every threat we've spoken about. It's only a matter of time where the power to engineer a pandemic is within reach to almost anyone. Which brings us to our 4th threat, artificial intelligence. Accelerating at an exponential rate, and considered by those building it potentially more dangerous than nuclear bombs, artificial intelligence promises to change everything. But AI is different. It has tremendous upside potential. It could cure cancer, invent new physics, solve world hunger. And that's the trap. The same promise that can cure cancer or crack fusion is what makes it impossible to stop. Because whoever builds it first doesn't just win the market. They may win permanently, holding power the world can never catch up to. But the downsides are just as vast. Artificial intelligence might be the last problem we ever face. And unlike other threats, there's huge disagreements how and when AI danger may arise. This isn't fringe paranoia. The people who built this technology, the very researchers responsible for it, believe that it can end humanity.
I think if this technology goes wrong, it can go quite wrong, but we try to be very clear-eyed about what the downside case is and the work that we have to do to mitigate that.
What is a path forward that ensures safety?
I don't know. I can't see a path that guarantees safety. That we're entering a period of great uncertainty where we're dealing with things we've never dealt with before. And normally the first time you deal with something totally novel, you get it wrong. And we can't afford to get it wrong with these things.
There are many ways in which AI can go wrong. Two famous examples are through misaligned goals and unchecked power. In the first, an AI, through cold logic, might decide that humanity is better off dead or turned into paperclips. Yes, I'm being serious. This is actually an argument. It goes something like this. An AI is developed at a paperclip company whose goal is simple: make more paperclips. And it just so happens that that AI achieves superintelligence before any other AI and decides that the best way to make more paperclips is to turn all matter into paperclips, including all life on Earth. Well, it's a bit oversimplified, but you get the point. Even if we develop AI safely, it raises the question, who's in charge of that AI? Is it Sam Altman, Elon Musk, North Korea? Whoever's in charge matters, because with unlimited power, they get to determine the future of humanity, who gets what and how much. They'll essentially be gods, and we have to hope that they have the best interests of all of humanity in mind. But AI is dangerous for other reasons. It's a multiplier for all the things that we've already discussed. If we look at it through the lens of game theory, its winner-take-all dynamics may push nations to nuclear war, because a country facing permanent subjugation will have an incentive to strike before the window closes. AI's surging power demand is reviving the fossil fuels driving the climate change we spoke about, while its intelligence gives all 8 billion of us, even the mad ones, the ability to bioengineer pathogens from a keyboard. But the most important thing AI multiplies isn't nuclear war or pandemics or any other threat we spoke about. It exasperates a problem less obvious, but far more pernicious. It might be the reason we can't stop any of this. What it erodes is our ability to agree on what's real and act on it together. We'll call this epistemic decay, and it's not new. We've been sliding into it for years. Trust collapsing as those in power serve themselves, institutions losing credibility, a public sorting itself into incompatible realities and voting on tribal lines. AI pours fuel on this fire. When anyone can conjure up a fake voice or story on demand, sheer reality doesn't just fragment, it becomes impossible to rebuild. Which is why epistemic decay is the threat beneath them all. Every danger we spoke about, nuclear war, pandemic, climate change, even AI itself, could be solvable if we could collectively understand and coordinate. But that's the one capacity we're losing. There's one threat we didn't mention, and it's the only one we didn't create. An asteroid from space or a solar storm strong enough to fry the electrical grid. The odds are low, but here's the thing. An asteroid is the one threat we could actually solve. We have the technology. Detect them, deflect, done. We've proven that we can, and yet we won't. Because as a species, we're reactive rather than preemptive. We wait for disaster and then scramble to clean it up. Take Chernobyl as an example. It was the worst human-induced disaster up to that point, and it was easily avoidable. The operators shut down the safety equipment thinking that they had it in control. And the world responded. Safety measures, regular inspections by an international organization. This kind of post-disaster response worked, more or less, when our disasters were survivable. But as our technology continues to grow in scope and in power, so too will our disasters, until we don't get to say, oops. If we're only ever responding to disasters, one of them might be our last. The reason we can't get ahead of any of this is because we treat our problems as separate, when really, they're one interconnected system. Take nuclear war as an example. In a way, it's a byproduct of trying to solve for a different problem, connecting the world. We built the internet to bring us together. The internet gave us the smartphone an infinite feed. And the feed learned that the best way to get our attention was to give us outrage. So it fed us outrage until we couldn't agree on what was true. And people who can't agree on reality split into tribes. And those tribes feed nationalist movements. And those movements are pulling at the treaties and trade ties that once kept nuclear nations from each other's throats. A chain that starts in a Silicon Valley boardroom and ends with a finger closer to the button. That's the polycrisis. It's not a list of disasters, but one interconnected system where the threads are pulling on one another. And so to solve for the polycrisis is to solve for all of these disasters all at once. Which raises the question that this channel exists to ask. If If we could see all this, why can't we do anything about it? We'll explore that in the next video. What you as an individual can do in response to all this. How to make sense of the world and respond accordingly.